What if the strange dream you forgot this morning was a message from the part of you that never forgets anything? Every night, without fail, the lights go out. Not just in your room, but behind your eyes. The muscles go slack, the breath slows to a gentle tide, and the body, this robe of flesh you wear, enters stillness. But something else turns on, a deeper signal. A private cinema, behind the eyelids, begins to play out stories you never scripted, voices you don't recognize, faces that blur in and out of memory. And when morning comes, you rise, stretch, pour coffee, scroll a screen, and whisper the spell that makes the whole transmission disappear. It was just a dream. But was it? That sentence, that tiny casual dismissal, is not harmless. It is a gate, and every time you say it, the gate slams shut between you and the most advanced guidance system you were born with. Because if dreams matter, then your inner world is alive, it's intelligent, it's trying to speak, and that truth is too intimate for a mind trained to prioritize only what it can control. So we dismiss, we forget, we reduce a profound download to nothing more than weird, and in doing so, we miss the message. But pause for a moment and really look. How often do your dreams repeat? How often do you visit the same street that doesn't exist in waking life? Or feel the same pressure of being late, being chased, being watched? How often does the same unresolved moment echo night after night, wearing a different costume, but speaking the same emotional code? A random system does not repeat itself. A chaotic mind does not encode patterns. Repetition is not a bug, it is design. Your dreams are not noise, they are compression. A symbolic language, optimized for speed, emotion, and bypassing the resistance of your waking filters. Like a machine sending error codes in lights and sounds instead of sentences. Like a dashboard blinking red, while you keep driving and saying, "It's probably nothing." The reason dreams feel strange is not because they are random, but because they come from a system we were never taught how to understand. What if your mind at night isn't trying to confuse you, but trying to complete you? What if the part of you that never speaks during the day, the part that holds pain you never processed, truths you weren't ready to hear, and memories you've exiled, is gently, night after night, trying to bring you home? Not with fear, but with design. And every time you say, "It was just a dream," you walk past a whisper from your own soul. Confusion is not failure, it is compression. Your dreams speak in code because they are not meant to flatter you. They're meant to rewire you. Let's begin with a simple truth. Your dreams are not confusing because they are broken. They are confusing because they are efficient. Think of it like this. If a car flashes a warning light on the dashboard, but you've never opened the hood, you might feel lost. Not because the light is wrong, but because you don't understand the language it's using. Dreams work exactly the same way. They are indicators, internal diagnostics, flashes of symbolic language meant to alert you, guide you, or sometimes even interrupt you, so that a deeper process can begin. But instead of lights, they speak in images. Instead of instructions, they send you emotion. Instead of logic, they rely on pattern. And most of us wake up trying to make sense of the dream, the same way someone might try to debug a machine by guessing what it feels like, rather than how it's built. That's why it feels strange. That's why it doesn't line up. You are using the wrong interface. Your conscious mind operates in words, reasons, stories, strategies, but your unconscious, the dreaming self, does not care for explanation. It cares for efficiency. It compresses insight into symbols, because a symbol travels faster than a sentence. An emotion bypasses denial. And a strange dream, one you can't explain, often lingers longer than a clear one. Why? Because your system knows this. Confusion wakes attention, and attention is the beginning of transformation. Your dream does not arrive with subtitles. It doesn't leave behind a manual. It doesn't knock politely. It appears. It demonstrates. It drops you into a feeling, a chase, a fall, a scream that makes no sound. A house with too many rooms, a stranger who knows your name. These are not errors. They are compression algorithms designed to deliver emotional data that your waking mind has ignored, suppressed, or postponed. This is not mystical, it's mechanical. If your phone overheats, It doesn't email you a paragraph. It dims, it slows, it shuts off apps. Behavior changes before explanation. Your subconscious does the same. What if the part of you that never speaks during the day, the part that holds pain you never processed, truths you weren't ready to hear, and memories you've exiled, is gently, night after night, trying to bring you home? Not with fear, but with design. And every time you say, "It was just a dream," you walk past a whisper from your own soul, compressed insights from a system that doesn't waste time explaining what you're already ignoring. And here's the key. Dreams don't confuse you to hurt you. They confuse you to awaken you. Because when logic can't decode something, it finally does what it hates to do. It listens. And listening is how we begin to shift. Not through analysis, through awareness. The only reason dreams feel disjointed is because we're trying to decode them with the wrong operating system. Not because they're unclear, but because they're not speaking the language you've been taught to trust. The difference is not belief, it's interface. One reacts from emotion, the other decodes the signal. There is a quiet difference between a human who is asleep inside their own patterns and one who has begun to wake up. It is not religion, it is not intelligence, it is not how many books they've read or how much shadow work they've done. It is simply this, where one reacts, the other observes. The unconscious human dreams emotionally. They wake up from the same nightmare, running, falling, forgetting something important, and they say, "That dream scared me," or "It made no sense," and that becomes the end of the inquiry. But the awakened human wakes up differently. They sit at the edge of their bed, still inside the echo of the dream, and ask softly, "What system inside me is speaking?" This question does not come from fear. It comes from curiosity. It comes from inner engineering. Because the awakened human understands something the unconscious one does not, that dreams are not random hallucinations. They are the visible signals of invisible processes. Just as a fever is not the illness, but the body's signal. Just as a fire alarm is not the fire, but the system's voice. Dreams are not the problem. They are the status report. When you are unconscious, meaning not present to your own patterns, you live in reaction. Your body tightens. Your thoughts loop. Your choices repeat. At night, those same systems, the ones you override all day, finally get a chance to speak. So the unresolved grief becomes a dream of sinking in water. The pressure you hide becomes a dream of being late to something important. The instinct you've suppressed becomes a wild animal chasing you through empty streets. None of these are prophecies. They are diagnostics. They are not personal attacks. They are background programs that finally got bandwidth. The unconscious self panics, or shrugs it off, or spiritualizes the dream into something mystical or exaggerated. But the awakened self does something simpler, quieter, more powerful. They observe, just like an engineer who hears a strange noise in a machine, doesn't scream or pray or smash it with a hammer. They listen, they take notes, they trace the vibration back to its source. You see, awakening is not some dramatic spiritual enlightenment. It's learning to sit inside your own operating system, without judgment. It's noticing that fear shows up as pattern, not personality. That dreams show you process, not punishment. The moment you stop judging your dreams and start studying them, you cross a line. You stop being a passenger of the system, and you become its mechanic. Your subconscious does not invent language. It repurposes what you already understand. Let's clear something up gently but firmly. Your dreams are not trying to be mystical. They are trying to be efficient. And in that pursuit, your subconscious is not poetic. It's practical. It doesn't create symbols from thin air. It reuses what already carries meaning inside your nervous system, what your body has felt, what your culture has shaped, what your memory has encoded. Because using familiar data is faster than building something from scratch. Take water. When water appears in a dream, it is not magical. It is a known quantity. Your body has felt it. Your skin has registered it. Hot, cold, rising, rushing. You've felt overwhelmed by it. You've felt cleansed by it. You've feared drowning. You've longed to dive in. So when your inner system wants to communicate the feeling of emotion rising, of being submerged by something you haven't fully processed. It shows you water, because water already means something to you. It moves, it floods, it cleans, it destroys. The image is the delivery method, but the emotion is the message. Or take the dream of a house. Not because a house is symbolic in some abstract textbook way, but because a house already carries layers of structure in your psyche. You know rooms, you know hiding places, you know doors that are locked, you know the feeling of being in your childhood home, or in a home you've never seen, but that somehow feels familiar. Your subconscious knows this too, so when it wants to speak about your internal landscape, your identity, your mental architecture, your hidden memories, it gives you a house. Sometimes with rooms you explore, sometimes with rooms you avoid, sometimes with an entire floor you didn't know was there. This is not mystery, it is design, and this is why dream dictionaries fail, because they assign universal definitions to personal codes. They assume that a snake means the same thing to a woman raised in a city as it does to a man raised in the jungle. They ignore emotional history. They delete context, and without context, there is no communication, only noise. The real decoder of a dream symbol is simpler than people think. Don't ask, "What does this mean?" Ask instead, "How did this make me feel? Where have I felt this before?" Because your emotional response is the index. The symbol is just the envelope. The content is emotional resonance, not visual appearance. Dreams do not care what the thing looks like. They care what it means to you. So two people can dream of a lion, and one is terrified because they once watched a predator documentary alone at night, and the other feels awe, power, freedom, because they grew up watching The Lion King with their father. Same image, different system, different meaning. This is why dream work is not about analysis. It's about awareness. You are not solving a puzzle, you are mapping a system. Symbols are not mystical metaphors sent from heaven. They are your own inner architecture, trying to communicate under the radar of logic. The awakened human stops asking, "What is this trying to tell me?" and begins to listen. What have I already felt that this is trying to surface? Because the subconscious never wastes time inventing new symbols when it can simply use what already moves you. You don't need to analyze your dreams. You need to listen to what stayed, because in every dream, something is trying to complete. Let's simplify something right now. You do not need a dream dictionary, a spiritual guide, or a PhD in psychology to understand your dreams. You need awareness. You need a method. And most of all, you need to stop overthinking. Because dreams are not puzzles, they are signals. And signals do not require belief, only recognition. Here is the most grounded and effective approach I've seen. Not because it's spiritual, but because it's mechanical. Ask 3 questions. That's it. 1. What emotion was strongest? Not what happened in the dream, but what stayed. You may have flown, fallen, fought, or wandered, but what was the emotional fingerprint left on you when you woke up? Was it fear, shame, freedom, urgency, relief? That emotion is the thread, and your first task is not to explain it, but to name it, cleanly, without narrative, just the raw signal, because your dreams don't care about stories, they care about felt data. And if you don't identify the dominant emotion, you miss the entry point into the deeper system. 2. Where in your waking life does this emotion already exist? This is where awareness becomes architecture. If the dream made you feel chased, ask, where in my daily life am I avoiding something? If the dream made you feel lost, ask, what part of my identity or direction currently feels unclear? If the dream made you feel watched, ask, where am I performing? Who am I trying to please or hide from? Dreams don't create new feelings. They surface ongoing processes you've minimized, ignored, or tucked into the background. Your subconscious is like an operating system running multiple emotional tabs. Some are active, others are draining you quietly. A dream is when one of those background tabs finally pops up on the screen, not to punish you, but to bring you back into coherence. 3. What is trying to move, change, or complete? This is where the architecture becomes fluid. Dreams are rarely about new problems. They're about incomplete processes. Think of them like software updates that never got installed. So the system keeps sending you reminders. Sometimes that shows up as a recurring dream, sometimes as a recurring emotion, wearing different costumes. But the core is always this: something is trying to move forward, something is trying to integrate, something is knocking gently on the door of your attention, saying, "I'm not finished." And the only question that matters now is, are you listening? When you listen, genuinely, with presence and curiosity, the system calms, the signal fades, the message completes. But when you ignore the emotion, reject the insight, or distract yourself back into habit, the dream repeats. Not to shame you, not to scare you, but to try again, because the subconscious is not a prophet, it's a builder, and if a part of you is trying to evolve, but the conscious mind keeps slamming the door, the subconscious will simply reroute and knock again later. So don't overanalyze your dreams, observe them, ask the 3 questions, use them like diagnostic tools, because this is not about decoding a riddle, it's about restoring inner communication. And that process begins the moment you stop trying to figure out your dream and start feeling what it already knew. Dreams are not forecasts, they are feedback, not about the world, but about how you're moving through it. Dreams are not meant to stay on your pillow, they are designed to reconfigure you, not with force, not with doctrine, but through repetition, insight, and subtle inner rewiring. Because dreams do not stop when you wake up. They continue in disguised form, as intuition, emotional reflexes, and unconscious patterning in your waking life. Once you begin listening to them, the transformation is quiet, but measurable. You begin to recognize the feeling before the reaction. You notice the pattern before it repeats. You pause not because you're confused, but because something inside you is finally tuned enough to hear the system shift. This is training, and like any training, it's not about perfection. It's about presence. You stop living on autopilot. You begin responding instead of suppressing. You begin feeling earlier, before the emotion turns into exhaustion, silence, or rage. You start to see how your subconscious has been running simulations at night so that your conscious self can make better calibrations during the day. That's not magic, that's mechanics. And here's where people often get lost. They think intuition is some spiritual sixth sense, but it's not. It's pattern recognition, honed by years of listening to inner data you didn't even know you were collecting. When you integrate your dreams, you begin to build that intuitive muscle, not because dreams tell you the future, but because they show you the architecture of your inner world right now. They reflect your posture toward life, your relationship with your fear, your unfinished stories. And when you start honoring that reflection by journaling, by slowing down, by asking real questions, something in you recalibrates. You no longer need chaos to learn. You don't need trauma to grow. You just need awareness. Because awareness turns dreams into training, and training turns confusion into capacity. The awakened human doesn't live fearlessly. That's a myth sold by people who want to appear enlightened. The awakened human lives attentively. They feel the fear when it arises, but they don't mistake it for truth. They observe the trigger, but they don't follow it blindly. They notice the symbols, the echoes, the unfinished loops, and they return to them with curiosity, not panic. And that's how mastery begins, quietly, not in a burst of light, but in the subtle click of inner systems coming into alignment. Dreams are not telling you what's going to happen. They are teaching you how you're happening, moment by moment, belief by belief, emotion by emotion. And when you learn to listen to that, you don't just interpret dreams, you integrate them into your choices, into your timing, into the shape of your presence in the world. And that changes everything. You are not waking up to something new. You are remembering what you were never allowed to trust. There is a moment, and it doesn't arrive with thunder, when something clicks. Not a breakthrough, not a revelation, just a quiet recognition, a nod from somewhere deep inside, like a mechanic who finally understands the sound their engine has been making for years, not because the noise changed, but because they finally stopped talking over it. And in that stillness, you see it. Nothing was ever wrong with you. You were not broken. You were not lost. You were not too sensitive. You were simply never taught how to hear the systems within you. You were raised in a world that worshipped logic and dismissed intuition. A world that said, what's not visible must not be real. What you feel is just noise. What you dream is just the brain cleaning house. But they were wrong. Your dreams are not noise. They are maintenance. Night after night, your system has been doing what no one taught you to do. Listen inward, maintain coherence, recover signals, complete loops, deliver messages, not in words but in design. And every time you dismissed it, every time you said, it was just a dream, your system didn't get angry. It just tried again, gently, with new images, new metaphors, new chances to remember. Because the goal was never to scare you, it was to wake you. And now that you're listening, you can feel it. Not loud, not dramatic, but certain, a soft restructuring. You realize the chase dream wasn't about danger, it was about avoidance. The dream of falling wasn't about failure, it was about surrender. The childhood home wasn't a memory, it was an emotional container waiting to be opened and emptied. And through it all, you were never disconnected from wisdom, only from the interface. You are not awakening into some new identity. You are returning to what has always been communicating with you. Now, you can hear it, not because the dreams got clearer, but because your awareness got quieter. And in that quiet, something inside you begins to trust itself again. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not late to your awakening. You are simply beginning to understand your own architecture, slowly, gently, with respect for the design. And the moment you stop fearing the signal, clarity replaces confusion. Not loudly, not in fireworks, but like an engineer, finally understanding the machine they have lived inside all along.